Okay, in section 5.2, we're going to be talking about adding and subtracting decimals, and this is very similar to just adding and subtracting integers. The only thing we have to do is we have to make sure we line up the decimal points when we're adding or subtracting our numbers. Line up our decimal points, and then we just need to add extra zeros if necessary afterwards. Zeros if necessary. So let's just do a couple examples. We'll go right on into this. Add 27.486 plus 6.37. Okay, so I'm going to do this in the vertical format. I have 27.486, and I have to make sure I line up the decimal points, one over the other. So here my next one is 6.37, and I'm just going to add like this. And if I notice that I don't have 6.37 only has 2 places behind the decimal, whereas 27.486 has 3, I'm just going to add an extra 0 there. And I simply add. So 6 plus 0 is 6, 8 plus 7 is 15, carry the 1, 7, 8. Now I carry my decimal point down in the exact same place. I have 7 plus 6 is 13, 3, so my answer is 33.856. Simple as that. Now if I'm asked to add 3 numbers, say add 3.7026 plus 43 plus 816.3. Again, I do this in the vertical format, and I line up my decimals. Now, if you notice, 43 doesn't have a decimal, right? But I assume that it's just right after the 43. So I'm going to do this again in the vertical format, 3.7026, and then I have 43 point, right? And I'm just going to add a bunch of zeros after there. And then I have 816.3, and I can add zeros there too. And again, add all these numbers together. So I have 6, 2, 0. Here I have 7 and 3, which is 10. So I carry the 1. And then I have 4, 5, 6, 7, and 6 is 13. Carry the 1. 6, 8. So I have 863.0026. Okay, to subtract, we go through the same process. All we have to do is line up our decimals. So subtract, let's say 0.2868 minus 0.056. I'm going to go back in the vertical format, 2868 minus, and all I have to do is line up my decimal points, 0.056, and then I can fill in extra zeros there. So 8 minus 0 is 0, 6 minus 6 is 0, 8 minus 5 is 3, 2 minus 0 is 2. The decimal point drops down, and there's my answer, 0.2308. And then if we're going to be adding and subtracting negative decimals, it's the same again like integers, the same rules. So we are adding and subtracting negative decimals. It's the same process as integers. As with integers. So, for example, if I say simplify, negative 23.9 plus 45.8. Right, and I look here and I see I have two numbers, right? But they have different signs. I'm adding numbers with different signs. So what do? I look at the bigger number. The sign of the bigger number is going to win, right? So our answer is going to be positive because 45.8 is bigger than 23.9, right? Then all I do is I subtract the two numbers. I have 45, which is the bigger number, minus 23.9, and I have to borrow. I have 8 minus 9. I need to borrow a 1. Right, so that becomes 4. So I have 18 minus 9 is 9. My decimal point just carries down. 4 minus 3 is 1. 4 minus 2 is 2. And I know my answer is positive, so I have 21.9. If I say simplify, negative 0.694 minus 0.482. So remember now I can make the subtraction into adding the opposite number, right? So I have a negative 0.694 plus, it's the same as a negative 0.482. Now I'm adding two numbers that have the same sign, right? So my answer is going to be negative because they're both negative numbers. And now I'm just going to say, okay, I just add the two, right? So I have 0.694. I line up my decimals, 0.482. And I'm going to add these, and I have 6, 17, and that's 10, 11, and I bring down my decimal point. So I have 1.176. But remember, my answer is negative, so I throw in a negative sign out there. Okay. So let's practice with some word problems. So let's take, for example, we have this problem here. The price of an item has been reduced by $3.16. The original price was $79.64. What is the price now? This is a very practical problem, right? So it says reduced. So what does that mean? That means it's a subtraction, right? So all we have to do is take our original price, which was $79.64, and we're going to subtract $3.16. We line up our decimals, and 14 I need to borrow, right? 4, I can't take away 6. So I have 14 minus 6 gives me an 8. 5 minus 1 gives me a 4. My decimal drops. 9 minus 3 is 6. 76.48. So my answer is 76.48. Okay, now we have, say, 3 or 4 decimal numbers. It says Austin filled his gas tank 3 times last week. And here are the amounts of gas he bought in gallons. What is the total amount that he bought? So we have 16.2. Right, we have 9. And if we don't have a decimal point, let's just assume that that decimal point follows the 9. Right? And then we have 8 0.92. And so we're going to add up all of these. And again, we've lined up our decimals. This one, 8.92, goes out 2 decimal places, so I'm just going to fill everything in with zeros. And I'm going to add down, so I have 0, 0, 2 gives me 2. 2 plus 9 gives me 11. Carry the 1. My decimal point stays in the same place. 6 plus 1 gives me 7. Plus 9 is 16. Plus another 8 is 24. Carry the 2. So Austin filled up 34.12 gallons of gas. And let's do one more. So let's do one more problem here. This one says, Kira cut away 3.77 meters of rope. Before that, she had 6 meters of rope, right? So she had a 6 meters, and then she cut away 3.77, right? So how much left does she have? So this whole thing was 6 meters. She cut away 3.77 meters. So we need to take 6 minus 3.77. And if we do this in the vertical format, remember if there's no decimal point, it just follows the whole number. And I'm going to bring out 2 zeros because of I'm taking away 3.77, which goes out to the hundreds place. And I simply subtract. Now here, right, just like I do with whole numbers, 0 take away 7. I can't do that, so I need to borrow 1 here, which means I need to borrow 1 from here, and I need to continue to borrow, right? So this becomes a 9, this becomes a 5. So I have 10 minus 7 gives me 3. 9 minus 7 gives me 2. And 5 minus 3 gives me 2. Right, so I have 2.23 meters left. And then you can always check the subtraction by performing the addition, right? So remember, we can always say, well, let's just check this out. If this is 2.23, if I add these two pieces together, I should get my 6 meters back, right? 2.23 plus 3.77. Does that give me what I'm looking for? So 7 and 3 is 10. Gives me another 10. My decimal point carries. And I get 5 plus 1 is 6. So yes, that does check.